Today's case is a premium design, slick, very, I would say, cool in terms of quality. We have RAIJINTEK PAEAN MINI case right here. And the front is quite nice actually. You have a tempered glass on the front, you have this some sort of a brushed aluminum part. Everything else is steel chassis, and we have a chimney effect. Now, this case has loads of possibilities in terms of modding capabilities, of course, as well as custom liquid cooling, because this case comes with two different brackets that you can mount pump press tube combo, and you can manage two 120 or two 140 millimeter fans. You can even manage most likely a radiator. Here's the thing. Now, there are two possibilities for placing the GPU. You can place it like I did, horizontally, or you can place it vertically, because you have already let's say, installed two PCI expansions. There are 3 slots right here going horizontally and 3 going vertically. Now, when we place them vertically, we have a choice to go with liquid cooling system. Now, if, for instance, you decide to go with liquid cooling system, you can go with 240 red on the bottom, 240, maybe even 240 red at the top, or even 280. And here at the back, you can place a tube reservoir right here at the top. The block has to go, of course, on the processor, and the GPU can go vertically. Now, it might be a very tight fit because the position and the orientation of the components is a bit, I would say, a bit stranger than other cases that have this sort of a capacity. First of all, you have a possibility to place an ATX power supply, which you do need to remove the bracket for the power supply and place it before on the bracket, and then placing the bracket inside. I would definitely suggest going with fully modular power supply, because as you can see from the close-up, there is literally no room to arrange cable management. I think what they done here is they thought of doing a cable management behind the fans, on top and at the bottom, and behind the radiator. And this is what will give you something to reorganize everything. Otherwise, if you go with something like this, for instance, a CPU tower cooler, a GPU without water cooling, non-modular power supply, don't go with non-modular power supply, because the cables will most likely go crazy. I would even suggest skipping the ATX power supply and going with Sfx, because you will get more space for your graphic card. The graphic card won't be touching the cables from the power supply, or even go with a shorter ATX power supply. That will give you more possibilities to rearrange the cables, reorganize them, and make it look quite nice. Now, when we're talking about the design, the interior, and how it can look, we have something that is actually quite strange. First of all, when I removed the side tempered glass, I was like, wow, okay, this looks quite interesting. And then I went to the back side of the case, and the thing is, you can't remove the back panel because it's one piece from here, here, and at the bottom. So one steel chassis going completely from the bottom, back, and top, and you can only remove this tempered glass side panel, because this is what happens then. You don't have it whatsoever space at the back to do cable management, and this is what gives us right here. This is the trick that has 24 pin going here, 8 pin EPS, the 8 pin for your graphic card is tangled right here at the bottom. And of course, since I used RAIJINTEK fans, they have a controller that needs to be plugged in into SATA power. You do need to have a SATA cable as well. And there is no possibility for 2.5 inch SSDs. You only can go with M.2 SSDs on your mini ITX board, because that's the only thing that can fit inside. So mini ITX board. Talking about the dimensions, you can actually go with much larger coolers. So I went with this one, just, well, you'll see in the future video, but you can go with much larger cooler, which could go with something like a tower cooler up to 160 millimeters, giving you quite nice actually space for that. You can do a chimney effect too at the bottom, pulling the air from the bottom and pushing it to the top, and then you have two more fans, either 120 or 140, pushing the air outside. Now with this configuration, and I know this cooler might be a bit strange to go with in this case, but this cooler and the 5600G went up to 80 Celsius degrees. Now the GPU had actually quite an outstanding temperatures. They went up to maximum 61 Celsius degrees, and this is Sapphire Radeon RX 6650 XT Nitro Plus, which actually does work at that temperature in any other case, so that's quite outstanding. And I only placed two fans as an exhaust. There is no intake at the bottom because I have loads of cables, and this was much easier to do. Now I did mention the water cooling part and what you could do here, because you have loads of possibilities with openings here and mounting position, mounting holes for your reservoir, for your pump and everything like that. But why did I mention the modding part? Now if you're into modding, or you like to do some strange things to your PC or special design or whatever, you can always create something interesting, because this case screams for modding and gives you nice possibilities. First of all, I would definitely go with an Sfx Power Supply to give me more space here at the bottom, and to actually reorganize the cables, since the power supply, the Sfx Power Supply, is much smaller in height and depth and everything, and even in length. You can place your cables inside this shroud for your power supply, and that way it gives you even more space for 240, 240, 280, 280, whatever you want to go with. Now there are also some other things that you could do to modify the case to give you a possibility to hide the cables, for instance using a bent plexiglass with 90 degrees, placing it here on front, that will actually hide the power supply here and hide the cables at the bottom, making it actually quite nice. I mean, this is a simple mod. You could just grab a huge sheet of plexiglass, measure it completely from the top where the fans or the radiator, depending on what you're going to place on the top. Use that one on the top to the bottom, then cut it here where the graphic card is, also depending on the length of the graphic card. Or if you go vertically, you can just go from the top to the bottom, depending on the fans on the top and the bottom, of course. I know I'm talking about loads of possibilities and combinations here, but just listen. And then you bend it for 90 degrees. Then you'll have quite nice, let's say, I would say some sort of a shroud that will cover the cables and give this case more aesthetic possibilities. As I said, you can mount, you have loads of mounting holes here at the back, giving you a possibility even to mount fans here if you want to have an exhaust right here, giving you quite nice possibilities. But if you go with larger CPU tower cooler, you don't need a fan here at the back. If you go with water cooling, GPU should be going vertically, CPU block on the CPU, of course, and then rerouting the tubes as it should be. Of course, there's also a possibility to mount a tube reservoir right here on the front, also, which depends on your GPU length. So this case is for air cooling. I wouldn't suggest it that much, but for water cooling there are loads of possibilities, and I think this case is designed just for that. If you take your time, design everything perfectly, check how it should be done, or you have some wicked idea to transform this case into a liquid cooling system that will be just wow, and everybody will say, wow, take a look at this crazy case that looks just brilliant. You can give this case a special touch, mod it, and that would be really cool. So far, I would say for air cooling, I wouldn't suggest it, but for water cooling and for your imagination, big thumbs up. So guys, check out the links below for RAIJINTEK PAEAN MINI, which is quite nice case. So that's that for today, RAIJINTEK PAEAN MINI. You can check out the links below again. And if you're new to the channel and you like the content that you're checking out, don't forget to subscribe, of course. Hopefully, I will see you in another one. Bye bye.